Well, good morning. Well, 2 weeks ago, we started Beyond the Zone. We started this series where it looks like where we're saying, hey, what would it be like for us if we would take our lives and go, hey, we're willing to live beyond our comfort zone. Because see, there's this zone that we just want to constantly live in, that we want to keep returning to because it is our comfort zone. It's that place we can kind of curl up in a little ball and feel all comfortable and feel all warm and feel all safe. And it's this comfort zone. And so we brought this out a couple weeks ago and said, hey, here's these 3 different zones when it comes to living our lives. That we have our comfort zone, which is where we want to stay. That we have this growth zone where we can grow more and actually see some of the dreams that we dream in our comfort zone. The only way we can let those dreams become a reality is if we step out of it and move into the growth zone. And then there's that panic zone. And what often ends up taking place with us is that when we're in our comfort zone, and we think about what could be, or we're asked to do something, we're told we have to do something that goes beyond our comfort, we immediately jump to the panic zone. And this isn't where we want to live. And when we find ourselves here, oftentimes we retreat very quickly all the way back to our comfort zone. Instead of just retreating far enough back to where we find ourselves in the growth zone. So we started this series with this idea of venturing out. We looked at this man named Abram that God looked at and God said, hey, Abram, I want to use you. I am choosing you. Will you leave this land and go into a land that I am sending you? I need you to pack up. I need you to head out. And then I'm going to tell you where I'm going to send you. That he had to be willing to venture out and trust God with what God was saying. When I think about our lives, I think that the greatest rewards, they require us to get beyond our comfort zone. So the greatest rewards that we experience in life are not the rewards that come from just staying in and hunkering down and staying in and living inside of the comfort zone. That we've got to push out, we've got to get beyond, we've got to step out and get into that growth zone if we're going to experience the greatest rewards that life has to offer. You know, but the reason we don't is because inside the zone, that comfort zone, things are safe. That inside the comfort zone, things are known. We know what things are like there. That inside the comfort zone, things are predictable, and we like to be able to predict. We like to be able to understand and think, ooh, I know what's coming, and I know what's going to happen, and we like that. And it's why we're so tempted to stay there and live there. See, in the zone, we have this illusion that we're in control. We're not, but it gives us that illusion, and we're willing to live with that illusion. That when we think about our lives, that with this comfort zone, that dreams are developed right here in the comfort zone. See, it's while we're here that we begin to dream about what could be. It's while we're living in this comfort zone that we're like going, hey, there's probably more to life than what I'm experiencing with what I'm doing and how I'm living. It's when we move into the growth zone that things are deepened. That these dreams that we end up having, that our dreams, they end up getting deeper, and we deepen our roots, and we begin to see the reality of our dreams come true. But see, in the panic zone, our dreams are devoured. That they're devoured, they're all eaten up, and that's why we're so afraid of this panic zone, because it just wants to take away everything that we would desire. And so we've got to find this way to get beyond the zone, but yet stay in the growth zone and not move all the way into the panic zone. Last week, James taught, and he taught about for such a time as this. That he shared the account of this young woman named Esther. And this young woman who was given the opportunity and responsibility to save the entire people group of the Israelites. That if it was going to be up to her. And that what she had to do is she had to take a great risk. And we don't take risks in our comfort zone. We have to get beyond our comfort zone to take these risks. And she had to take a great risk. She had to even risk her life if she was going to be able to confront and speak to the king and make a request of the king and share with him all the evil that had been taking place that he didn't know about. See, for such a time as this. That she was given that opportunity for such a time as this. And I believe that that is true for you and I as well. That God creates us, and He creates us with purpose. He creates us with a purpose for us to live out and fulfill His plans and His desires for our life. And that He gives us along the way these different for such a times as this. If you're a believer, if you're somebody that you're absolutely convinced of who Christ is, that you're that person that you go, hey, I just really want to know what God's plan is for my life, what God's purpose is for my life. I want to be able to know that. I want to be able to know and hear and understand and be able to do what God wants for me. Maybe you're here today and you're going, I'm not a believer, I'm more of a doubter. I kind of doubt whether God's there, and if He is there, I doubt that He really cares. Maybe that's the place where you are. And if you're there, we are certainly glad that you are here. And I think that you've picked a great time to be here, because you're going to end up seeing what happens with somebody who is a doubter. What happens with somebody who doubts God, but yet they're willing to continue to engage with God and see, okay, God, if you're real, kind of show it, make it known. And if you're there, then I'm willing to do what it is that you have in store for me. We're going to be looking in the book of Judges. It's actually the 7th book in our Bible. This book of Judges. We're going to be looking at chapters 6 and 7. The story goes on all the way through chapter 8, but we're just going to be looking at chapters 6 and 7. Looking at some of these highlights that ends up taking place over this man named Gideon, that ends up discovering that God sees him as a mighty hero. It's not something that he sees for himself. It's not even something that he was believing for himself. But it's something that God believed in for him. That God knew what the purpose was for him. And God begins to reveal this and lay this out and shares with Gideon some of the things that he's going to have to do, that he's going to have to move beyond his comfort zone. And he's going to have to move into the growth zone. He's going to have to avoid the panic zone in order to do and accomplish what God has set out for him to do and to achieve. When it comes to life, I think that God accomplishes extraordinary things. That He accomplishes these extraordinary things through ordinary people who trust Him. These ordinary people that say, God, I trust you. And because I trust you, I'm willing to step beyond the zone. I'm willing to step beyond my comfort zone. And see, if that's something that we would all do, that we would all be able to experience this incredible life that God has in store for us, that we would be able to experience it to its fullness by doing what it is that God has created us for. Something else I've discovered along the way in my 49 years of life is that faith, it doesn't plateau. That faith isn't this thing that just kind of reaches this point and it just kind of stops and it just kind of lies and dormant and it's just kind of flat. That faith doesn't plateau. It either develops or declines. That's what happens with faith. Faith doesn't plateau. It either develops or it declines. That we're either doing some things with our life and the way that we're growing, the way we're trusting, the way we're leaning into God, and it's growing us, our faith is growing, or we get kind of lackadaisical, we kind of put it on coast, and we just start seeing things just begin to decline. That our faith won't ever just lie flat. We can't just arrive at a certain point and go, I'm safe and I can just hang out here and it'll just stay this way. That you, chances are, if you're like me, that you've had some times that you've doubted God. Whether you've doubted that He's existed, whether you doubt that He cares, whether you doubt what you're doing is what He wants you to be doing, when at one point you knew that you were doing what He wanted you to be doing. And if that's true of you, like it's been of me, it's when I wasn't growing my faith. And it was when I was allowing my faith, I thought I was just coasting, but no, I was declining in my faith. So we've got to do some things to grow it. And that's what we're talking about with this whole series about Beyond the Zone. What would life look like? What could it be if we would be willing to get beyond our comfort zone with life, even in our relationship with God, and that we would trust Him and we would do what it is that we know that He is calling us to do. So we're going to be in this book of Judges. We're going to start in chapter 6. Let me give you a little bit of the backstory. That the nation of Israel has been divided into these tribes. And the nation of Israel, what they're doing is they're finding themselves in their different areas, their different regions of the land. Is we've got this tribe of Manasseh, and this tribe of Manasseh, that they are a group that they keep being pillaged. That there are these marauders that keep coming in, and they keep taking all of their crops, keep taking all of their livestock, and they keep leaving them with nothing for them to be able to try to survive with nothing. It's these groups of Midianites, and there's the Amalekites that are coming along, and they are coming in, and they just keep coming in and doing this. Every time the crops would grow and they would be ready for harvest, they would come in and they would take it all. And so God's people, they would cry out to God. And as they would cry out to God, they'd say, God, have mercy on us. God, come and rescue us. God, deliver us from this. And what they didn't realize is that the reason that this has been happening for the last 7 years is because it was God's punishment on them. And God was punishing them. Well, why would God punish them? Because God had given them an instruction. And the instruction was that when you get to move into this land that I have promised you, this land that is flowing with milk and honey, this very fertile land, very fruitful land, that when you move into this land, this best land that I am going to give to you, I'm going to hand over the people to you while you come in and take over this land. Do not begin to worship their gods. And yet, what did they do? They started to worship their gods. They had set up an altar to the god of Baal. This God who was the God that, hey, here's the guy that would come along and say, hey, he would bless the crops and you could be able to grow more. And that's what he was known for, this false God. And then they had this Asherah pole. And this Asherah pole was the god of fertility. And so they would worship her so that they could have their children and more children and more children. And they'd set this up and they began to worship them. But see, the people, they were crying out, saying, God, we need you to deliver us. God, we need you to come through. God, we can't handle this anymore. And so God was ready to come through for them. So we're going to be bouncing around. We're going to start in Judges 6, verse 6. It says, so Israel was reduced to starvation by the Midianites. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help. That once again, they had come in and they had pillaged everything. They think literally they're going to starve to death. And so they cry out to God for help. And the Lord sent a prophet. And as this prophet went in, the prophet began to share with them. Hey, God's the one that delivered you from captivity before. God's the one that's given you this land. God is the one who has provided for you. And God has shared with you, do not worship their gods. And you have chosen to worship their gods. And this is why you have been being punished. Because you have not listened to God's instructions. And so he hears this. And then God sends in this angel of the Lord. This angelic presence that would represent himself. And this angel of the Lord shows up to this man Gideon. And shares with Gideon what he knows is going to be Gideon's calling. Judges chapter 6, verse 12. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, mighty hero, the Lord is with you. Mighty hero, this could also be translated strong warrior. God is with you. So here's Gideon, and he's hearing this. He's seeing this angel, having a conversation, hearing that God is with him. And as soon as he hears this, he starts thinking about everything that they've had to be going through. And so he's got a few questions. Verse 13. Sir, Gideon replied, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles that our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites. Then the Lord turned to him and said, go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. Go, rescue the Israelites. I am sending you. See, Gideon got what most of us have wanted. Gideon got what most of us have asked for. Gideon got what most of us have questioned. That we just want to know, God, what do you want from us? God, what do you want us to do? He got what most of us have wanted and asked for and questioned. And see, we say that we want to know for sure that God exists. We want to know. We want to be able to have something that we can hold on to, something tangible, something that we can look at and go, yep, I know, and I know without a doubt. He got this. That we want to know what God wants us to do. I just wish that I knew. I just wish that I knew what God wanted me to do. You know, if I were to say, how many of you guys would have ever had or thought or prayed, God, what do you want me to do? What is it you want from me? I think most of our hands would go up. So we go, yeah, I want to know that. And I've asked that of God before. And then as soon as we ask it and God begins to show it to us, we go back to our comfort zone and say, no, God, I can't do that. And we turn our back on God. Because we're going, I'm not comfortable with that. No, I don't think I'm capable of that. God, you don't know where I've been. God, do you? Or if you do, maybe I just need to remind you of some of my mistakes, some of my shortcomings, some of my failures, some of my faults. That we inform God. And this is exactly what happens with Gideon. That Gideon responds, verse 15. Says, but Lord, Gideon replied, how can I? Here you are being told that you are going to be this mighty warrior, this strong warrior, this hero, mighty hero. And here's Gideon going, how can I? And I think his how can I is more of a, how can I? How can I stay in my comfort zone and still be used by you? God, how can I stay in my comfort zone and make a difference for you? God, how can I? How can I stay in my comfort zone and impact my part of the world? And he's just going, I don't see it. I don't know how it can happen, God, because I know what my comfort zone is, and I'm just going to hang out here, and I don't know how I can be used by you and stay in my zone. But Lord, Gideon replied, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family. God, in case you've forgotten, I'm the smallest, I'm the scrawniest, I'm the weakest, I'm the dumbest, I'm the youngest. How is it that I can be the one that's going to be able to rescue Israel? And I think that our response to God is often just as irresponsible as Gideon's. That when God prompts us, when God tells us, we start identifying all of the reasons of why we couldn't and why we can't or why we won't. That we don't believe in ourselves the way that God believes in us. And we just want to retreat and hang out, being confined to our yellow zone, our comfort zone, our cautious zone, our coward zone. No, I'm just going to hang out here. I'm fine with doing life here. And when we do that, we miss out on God's blessings. We missed out on God's best for us. We miss out on seeing that we could be doing so much more for God. When we say, no, I'm just going to stay in my zone, my comfort zone. Crosspoint, our church, we're a growing church. And we're experiencing some growing pains. And it really is pain. And for me, I deal with some emotional pain with where we're at as we're growing as a church. That it hurts me a little bit. And the reason that it hurts me a little bit is because, see, we've got this ministry that we call Clubhouse. And our Clubhouse ministry is a ministry that's designed for birth through kindergartners. And that's a ministry that we know that parents need to be able to bring their kids there so that they can come in here and to be able to learn and grow in their faith. But the reason that it's a growing pain and that it pains me is because we have started to turn people away from the Clubhouse. Of families coming in and to check in their young child and them being told, we're sorry, but we don't have any more room. It's a growing pain. And it pains me because I know that there are some families that they know that they need to be in. They want to be in here. They're looking for hope and they're looking for encouragement. They're looking to grow in their faith. And yet we've even had a family that when they were told we don't have room, they left. That they had come to church, got out of the car, walked up to check in, couldn't check in, and walked back out and left. And I have to tell you, we don't have a real estate problem. It's not that we don't have enough space. We've even got a room for the Clubhouse that we don't have anybody in right now. But we are turning people away. Well, why would you be turning people away? Because we have a ratio of volunteers to kids. And our ratio, depending on how young you are, whether you're a bed baby or whether you're a toddler, whether you're somebody that you're in preschool, it changes. But we have this ratio, and it's about keeping it safe and having a safe environment. And we need more people to volunteer, to work in our Clubhouse. But see, we've got a lot of people that in their comfort zone doesn't allow them to volunteer in the Clubhouse. That maybe you're hearing this and you're going, hey, you don't want me because I can't stand kids. I mean, I tolerate mine, but I can't stand kids. And maybe that's true. Maybe you're here and you're hearing this and going, Will, I love kids. I didn't know that you needed more help. I would love to volunteer out there. And that's great. We'd love to have you. Maybe there's some of you in here that you're going, no, yeah, you don't want me because I don't love kids. I'm not passionate about kids. Well, would you be passionate about being in the church? Would you be passionate enough about people that you'd be willing to volunteer in there so that other people can come into here that they're not going to be able to otherwise? Or maybe passionate enough that you are going to volunteer out there so that they're not bringing in a child in here that is being a distraction in here. That you're going, hey, I want to be able to provide a way so that everybody can be in here and nobody has to be distracted. Would you be passionate enough to care that way? I'm going to ask you to do something. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to step out of your comfort zone. If you're not volunteering on a Sunday morning, I'm going to ask you to step out of your comfort zone, and would you help us out over the summer? that we have a Crosspoint opportunity for you. And it is our Clubhouse Summer Volunteer Project. And what we're looking for is we're looking for some people. We need dozens of people that are willing to say, I'll serve one Sunday a month. That's what we're looking for. Would you be willing to give up a Sunday a month so that we can have a ministry that is not turning families away? That if that's you and you're willing to do that, we've got a slide we're going to pull up that's going to show you what you can do. You can text the word CH and then space and put your first name and then put your last name and text that to 59769. And so here's what we're going to do. If everybody will just pull out your phone, that way you look like, hey, yeah, I'm doing this. If everybody will pull out your phone, you can do something else with it when you pull it out, but this way you look like, hey, I'm willing to volunteer. But if everybody will pull out your phone, and if you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone and say, I'll help where there's a need. I'll be willing to do that so that there is a benefit for others. See, the benefit doesn't just stop with the benefit to the children. It's a benefit that goes all the way to the parents. That if you would be willing to do that, would you text that in? And we're going to be in touch with you this week, and we're going to share with you, hey, here's some different opportunities, different ways that you can be serving in that ministry. And would you give us one Sunday a month as we look at June, July, and August to help us out there? All right, my commercial's done. But let's get back to Gideon. See, God was asking Gideon to step up so that he could see how God would show up. Gideon, are you willing to step up? And if you are, God's going to show him just what happens when he shows up. So that's part of this growth zone for us. That when we get beyond our comfort zone and we step into the growth zone and we move in that direction that God's calling us to, that God shows up and we get to see it, we get to be encouraged by it, we get to be wowed by it. And this is what takes place. Verse 16, the Lord said to him, I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man. This army that had been identified as a swarm of locusts, that's how thick they were. An army that had been identified as that they came in droves of camels that could not be counted. And you're going to fight against them. You're going to save Israel as if you were fighting against one man. And so that was a pretty big, bold statement. And so Gideon, being in touch with his human side, said, God, I'm going to need some assurance if this is really you, if you want me to go out and do this. I'm going to need something from you. I'm going to need a sign from you. And so he's talking to this angel of the Lord. He says, will you wait here? I'm going to go and prepare a meal to offer as a sacrifice to God, and I'll bring it back. And he goes, he hurries home, he comes back, he brings this meal that he prepared, puts it down, he puts it on a rock, and the angel of the Lord took his staff, reached out his staff, touched the food, and instantly it was all consumed, burned up. Boom. And Gideon was like, okay, you're the real deal. Okay, that's what I needed. I just needed some assurance. I needed a sign. Thank you for the proof. Yes, I am willing to do this. You know, God does just as much coaxing as he does commanding. This is true. Whenever you read your Bible, you see it over and over and over again. That God lays the command out, and then he has to coax people along to help them see why they would benefit from it and how they can do this. And it's true here with Gideon as well. Well, God ends up giving Gideon this power, and it says he clothes him with this power. Gideon takes a ram's horn, he blows this horn. It's a call of arms to try to get all of the people that are willing to come in and to fight against the Midianites, to fight against these Amalekites, to come in and battle and to protect the Israelites. And so they start coming in and coming in and coming in and pouring in. And he ends up getting 32,000 people that are willing to come in and do battle and to stand up and to protect them, to take back their land and protect them. And so we get to see what takes place from here. That Gideon sees this army rise up and rally behind him, but yet he still is having a little bit of doubt whether or not he really should be doing this. And so he asks God for another sign. He asks God for a little more help. So in Judges chapter 6, jump to 36, it says, Then Gideon said to God, If you are truly going to use me to rescue Israel as you promised, prove it to me this way. I will put out a wool fleece on the threshing floor tonight. That's what I'm going to do. That's what he's telling God. He's having this conversation with God. He says, hey, prove it to me this way. I'm going to take this wool fleece and I'm going to put it out on the threshing floor tonight. God, that's what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to need you to do, God, is as I'm going to need you to take and this fleece, I'm going to need you to make it wet. I need you to let the dew come on it and make it wet, but yet have the ground all around it remain dry. If you'll do that, God, then I'll know that yes, this is you. It's what you're wanting me to do, and so I will trust you. So this is what Gideon does. This is what he asks. He says, if the fleece is wet with dew in the morning, but the ground is dry, then I will know that you are going to help me rescue Israel as you promised. And that is just what happened. When Gideon got up early the next morning, he squeezed the fleece and wrung out a whole bowlful of water. And the ground around it had remained dry. This is now 2 times that Gideon has seen from God something miraculous to go, yes, this is me. And yes, I'm going to do this for you. And so what does Gideon do from there? Well, let's see. Verse 39, then Gideon said to God, please don't be angry with me, but let me make one more request. Let me use the fleece for one more test. This time, let the fleece remain dry while the ground around it is wet with dew. That God, this time, in order for me to make sure it's you, will you give me one more night, and will you just take and put that water all around the fleece and let the fleece remain dry? Because then I'll know it's you. God, 3 times the charm, God. Come on. And so this is what he does. So that night, God did as Gideon asked. The fleece was dry in the morning, but the ground was covered with dew. You know, what made Gideon this mighty hero? What was it that God saw in him? That he would be this strong warrior. I think as you look at the whole entire story of Gideon, that you would discover that Gideon feared disappointing God. That he's already done this other massive act that went against all of the people and destroyed this altar that was set up to Baal and the Asherah pole. He's already done all that and risked his life. See, Gideon feared disappointing God more than the destructive abilities of his opponents. That's what he feared. He didn't fear the destructive abilities of his opponents near as much as he feared disappointing God. That is what made him a mighty hero. That you and I can become these mighty heroes of God. That if we would fear disappointing him more than we would fear anything else in this world. Let's wrap this up. Chapter 7, verse 2. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many warriors with you. That 32,000 is too many. If I let all of you fight the Midianites, the Israelites will boast to me that they saved themselves by their own strength. Therefore, tell the people, whoever is timid or afraid may leave this mountain and go home to their comfort zone. I added that comfort zone part. So 22,000 of them went home, leaving only 10,000 who were willing to fight. 10,000 fighting against these droves of camel that are too many to be numbered. This army that is as thick as the locusts. And God's whittling them down. But God also didn't want Gideon to have 10,000. Verse 4. But the Lord told Gideon, there are still too many. You're still too comfortable. It's still too easy for you to go, hey, we got enough numbers. Okay, with God's help, we can do this. There's still too many. It's still too comfortable for you. So we've got to whittle it down. Bring them down to the spring, and I will test them to determine who will go with you and who will not. To take them to the spring. And I want you to divide them into the two groups that they're going to self-form. Because there's going to be a group of guys that take their hands, they cup the water, and they bring it to their mouth to drink. And there's going to be a group of guys that get on their knees and they bring their mouth to the stream and they drink directly from the stream. And I want you to divide those into those two groups. Verse 6, only 300 of the men drank from their hands. All the others got down on their knees and drank with their mouth in the stream. The Lord told Gideon, with these 300 men, I will rescue you and give you victory over the Midianites. Send all the others home. Just 300. What God wanted Gideon to know that it wasn't the size going into the fight that mattered. It was going to be the size of the faith going into the fight that would matter. Not the size of the army, but the size of the faith. Verse 22, when the 300 Israelites blew their ram's horns, the Lord caused the warriors in the camp to fight against each other with their swords. But the warriors in the other camp that was going to attack the Israelites, they ended up fighting each other. At this point, God allows Gideon to be able to call on other people to come and to chase them out of the land. And they do. And Gideon becomes this mighty hero. Let me go over our time, just a couple of minutes, and let me unpack for you 5 growth lessons from Gideon. We'll do this quickly. Number 1, God is incredibly patient. That he was patient with the Israelites, he was patient with Gideon, he is patient with you and I. God is incredibly patient. Number 2, God is gracious to those who seek him. That the Israelites, they were in the midst of sinning. They had set up an altar to a false god and was worshiping while they were praying to Yahweh, God, saying, God, we need you to come and rescue us. And God was gracious to those who seek him. Number 3, Gideon didn't dismiss his assignment because of his doubts. But he just didn't go, I just have some doubts about my abilities, whether I'm going to be able to do that, so no, I'm not going to. He didn't just dismiss it. Now, he questioned it. He asked God, hey, God, will you jump through some hoops if you're going to ask me to do this? But he didn't dismiss it. Number 4, Gideon discovered God's way is better than my way. That God's way and doing it God's way is better than my way. Gideon didn't lose to anybody. And he only had 300 guys go in and do this. That God's way is better than my way. And number 5, God's little can do a lot. That God's little can do a lot. And maybe for you, you've just been in your comfort zone going, little old me, what could I do? God's little can do a lot. That if you would be willing to be used by God, he will use you. See, I believe we can all be mighty heroes. We can all be these mighty heroes of God if we'll follow his plan and his path for our life. Trust needs to extend where our faith seems to end. That's what Gideon discovered, is that trust needs to extend where my faith seems to end. And if I will let my trust extend, where my faith seems to end, then I can move past my comfort zone and into the growth zone and see and experience what God has in store. Because where God calls us to step out, He will show up. And when He shows up, we can see what a powerful, mighty God we serve and how He wants to use us to accomplish His plans. Pray with me. God, you truly are the mighty one. And there is no one and nothing that is greater and grander than you. God, we get tempted to just live life and to retreat back to our comfort zone and to hang out there. And it keeps us from experiencing the life that you're calling us to. So God, I pray that the ear of our heart would be listening to you and that we would be willing to step out and experience this life in its incredible way, because we would be willing to live and do what it is that you call us to, and that we could experience you in a way that we have yet to experience you before, because we're willing to trust you. God, help us to live our lives living beyond the zone, living in the growth zone. Jesus, it's in your name we pray. Amen.